Thank you for joining us today for Monster's webinar on breakthrough bias for a better talent pool. You have all been joining us because you're probably wondering, is your career site or maybe your job ads unintentionally discouraging diverse candidates from applying? So over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be introducing the importance and impact of unbiased and inclusive recruitment writing, and that's going to impact your candidate pool as well as your bottom line. This session will quickly reveal how we can make every qualified candidate feel welcome to apply, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation or identity, age, neurodivergence, or disability. We'll discover how new communication skills and approaches will foster a diverse and inclusive workforce and provide your business with incredible benefits, from boosted employee morale to engagement, customer loyalty, and increased revenue. At the end of this webinar, you'll be hearing a little bit from Carla Russell in terms of our next steps and how you can learn more about our extended training. Tomorrow, you will also receive a copy of this webinar recording as well as the slides. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Carla Russell, our Senior Director of Customer Success. Carla?
Thanks, Meg. And welcome everyone to Monster's Inclusion in Recruitment Writing. And the presentation that you'll be going through here with me today is Breakthrough Bias for a Better Talent Pool, where we will discuss how you can make your communications to job candidates more inclusive and unbiased. It's been proven that this line of thinking can be instrumental in widening your candidate pool and also finding hiring success. So I'm happy to be here today, and let's get started. So first, we're going to talk about how many communication vehicles all of you are using to reach your candidate pool. And there is a long list of items that you're probably working on from a recruitment standpoint. The first being your job ads. All of you that are in the trenches and writing your job ads will benefit from hearing a few tips today. We also have career sites, which candidates are accessing on your websites and via mobile or desktop. There's social media posts as well related to recruitment activities, and also email campaigns to prospective candidates. And you may also be using a text management platform to manage outreach or to outreach to candidates as well. And the final thing here may be video scripts. So you might be writing scripts for recruitment videos to advertise your jobs or your employment brand, to put your employment brand on display as well. It's important to make every effort to craft messages that will be well received by everyone. This sounds easy enough by making a conscious decision to put an inclusive lens on your recruitment writing, and this can have a significant impact on your hiring results and your company performance. And so, as you'll soon see, we'll talk a little bit about how you can impact your candidate pool and include more candidates in your recruiting initiatives. The first thing we're going to do is take a pause, and I'd like to ask all of you if you've ever seen a biased job ad or a request that could exclude specific groups from your hiring process. So if you just take a minute in the chat and put a yes or a no, that would be great. I'm just kind of curious how many of you have experienced this. It's kind of a mixed group here, a lot of yeses, some nos. It's great. Fantastic. I really appreciate all of you engaging. Those of you that haven't seen any biased job ads or haven't been privy to any hiring processes that may have excluded candidates, you may be in the minority. I think that there's a lot of folks out there that are looking for jobs or have looked for jobs and experienced this. So we're going to do everything we can to broaden our candidate pool, make it more diverse and more inclusive. And that starts with all of you. So just a moment here to talk about the Equal Opportunity Commission. As you know, some of you may know, it's known or called the EEOC. It's responsible for enforcing federal laws that make it illegal to discriminate against job applicants or an employee because of their race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, or disability status. Although we may be covering some of the laws that work to prevent discrimination in the recruiting process, it's important to note that if you have questions that arise, or if there's questions or concerns or language that you're considering using and you're not sure whether or not you should use it, you should certainly reach out to your legal team, make sure you reach out to them for guidance and making sure that you're sticking within your policies and the guidance from your legal team. So just want to let you know that's could be a good resource for you as well internally within your companies. So diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives are on the rise for good reason. Thanks to the global social justice movement, planning for DE&I has become a top priority among employers around the globe. As we look into the progress of this front, Monster's 2002 Future of Work report found that there's been a pivot towards implementation. And when asked to rank DE&I priorities, building a diverse workforce moved from third in 2021 to first in 2022. So although we are moving in the right direction, there is one barrier that has remained, and that's implicit bias. So according to 60% of recruiters, implicit bias is a real problem in the American workforce. And it refers to the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. It's important to remove this bias from every recruiting process to achieve better hiring results. So before we go any further, I wanted to cover some benefits of a diverse workforce. So you can see the list of items here that companies benefit from. So certainly different perspectives, improved creativity, innovation and collaboration, better employee engagement, reduced turnover, better problem solving and decision making. These are some of the great benefits, right? It's also been found to give a company's reputation a boost and even improve hiring results. So companies with diverse executive teams have also been found to be more likely to experience above average profitability. So these are all reasons for us to take an extra moment of time and make sure that we're being inclusive. So my next polling question for all of you is, can you think of 2 benefits recruiters can gain just by making their job ads more inclusive? So if you can think of 1 or 2 benefits for recruiters, can you enter them in the chat? Love to see what all of you have. Variety in number of applicants, more diverse applicants, a variety, increased pool of applicants, better pool of candidates, stronger pipeline, better workforce overall, more perspectives, better morale. Yeah, these are great. I know I always love working with a group of diverse people. We come up with some great ideas that may be a little bit different than what I would have come up with on my own. Diversity, increased productivity, better ideas, outreach to different sales opportunities. I love these. Thank you so much for entering your ideas in the chat. So we're going to actually move forward and talk a little bit about how recruiters can benefit. So recruiters can benefit because by being more inclusive, you can actually also attract more female candidates. You can fill jobs faster as well. In fact, you could attract up to 23% more women and become 17% more efficient when it comes to filling roles with just a little bit of rephrasing and making a conscious effort to make everyone feel welcome to apply. So now let's look at the challenges that recruiters are facing. 45% of employers say they can't find the workers with the skills they need. I'm sure you're all living this reality today. 29% of global recruiters say the sheer lack of candidates applying for the job is the reason they can't hire the right personnel. And let's get started and learn how we can actually craft our job ads in an inclusive and unbiased manner to ensure we are doing the best to attract candidates instead of steering them away. And one of the first things that we can do is try to remove gender bias. The EEOC enforced Title VII, which forbids any employer from discriminating against people based on their sex, gender identity, or sexual orientation. And it's important to note that these protections apply regardless of any state or local laws that are in effect. So before we start on this section, I wanted to cover the fact that 58% of women would turn down a job at a company with no female leaders. So how can we ensure that those female candidates feel welcome to apply? Is there a reason why some job ads receive more male applicants than others? It turns out that the American Psychology Association published a study that found gendered wording in job ads not only exists, but sustains gender inequality. It was aimed at uncovering why women were underrepresented in many areas of employment, including high levels of business, natural sciences, and engineering. As you can see, the female coded words on the left side of the screen have softer words like agree, compassion, cooperate, and share. While on the right-hand side of the screen, the male coded words are more aggressive, like ambitious, assertive, challenge, decision, and driven. Based on the study, female participants felt that the job ads with male-coded language were less appealing, and women actually felt as though they belonged less in those occupations. And for men, there's no significant opposite trend. So based on this research, you can consider male-coded wording in your communications as a detractor for female candidates, as it should be avoided. So when you are crafting your job ads or any of the recruitment advertising vehicles that you're creating, it's good to keep in mind some of these gender-coded words that can be used or avoided to make sure you're getting the largest candidate pool within that's possible for your positions. So I'm going to take one more moment here and pause for another polling question. I'd like to ask everyone to take a guess. Before women will consider applying for a position, what percentage of qualifications do you feel they must have? So in the chat, if you just want to put 100%, 85%, 50%, 70%, 80%, 75, 110%, I love that. 85.43%. So most people are guessing 50% or above. So that is, thank you again for participating in that chat poll. So when it comes to qualifications, men and women interpret them very differently. So a Hewlett-Packard study report that they put out found that men, when they apply to positions, they feel like they need to meet up to 60% of the qualifications of that job ad, where women, on the other hand, feel like they need to meet 100% of those requirements. So making sure your requirements only list the actual requirements is really important. And an even better practice would be to have a requirements section and a preferences section on your job advertisements. So now let's switch gears. I'm going to talk about inclusive recruitment practices through the lens of sexual orientation and identity bias. In 2020, the Supreme Court issued a landmark decision prohibiting sex discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or transgender status. A huge victory for the LGBTQ plus community that opened up the conversation on inclusivity in the workplace. So what outcomes can be expected when companies speak up about their LGBTQ inclusive practices? They'll see greater employee engagement, improved brand reputation, And most importantly to this discussion, a better job applicant pool, which is what we were all after. I also love this, this last one here, which is the higher employee retention. We're all looking to retain people as long as possible. It's been reported that 20% of the LGBTQ Americans have experienced discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity when applying for jobs. So make sure to kick off the process with inclusive language for this particular candidate pool, just as a few examples. Instead of using he or she, you can switch out the language and use them or you. Stay clear of husband and wives and use general terms like spouse or partners. And words like preference indicates that sexual orientation is a choice and is considered offensive and an outdated term. So make sure to use sexual orientation instead. So let's move on to biases found in race, religion, and national origin. You cannot ask for this information unless it is a legitimate business need. So it's just a note for all of you that are writing these job advertisements and recruitment marketing materials. When writing recruitment communications, race and national origin should never be mentioned. Even indirect wording can discourage diverse applicants from applying. An example of what to avoid is something like strong English skills that indicates that maybe non-native English speakers are not welcome to apply. Preferences for someone who is clean shaven can also exclude candidates whose faith requirements requires them to maintain facial hair. It also indicates the position is for a man. And then finally here, job postings cannot state that U.S. citizenship or lawful permanent residence in the U.S. is required. So make sure to stay clear of that as well. Okay, this statement pretty much sums it up. By setting criteria that make it possible for a certain group to apply, you're indirectly excluding them from the recruiting process. This is something to keep in mind as you're creating a job ad and your job ads and other recruitment materials for your company. So moving on to the next topic, we're going to talk about age discrimination. The ADA forbids age discrimination against people who are age 40 and up. Older workers account for about 20% of the nation's workforce, which is a 13% increase from just 20 years ago, and it continues to climb. So people are living longer and they're working past retirement age. So despite the experience, credentials, and industry know-how that older workers bring to their next opportunity, they're faced with language that discourages them to apply. So this graphic here, in this graphic, you'll see phrases like college grad, tech savvy, high energy, digital native, cultural fit, go-getter, college student. All of these terms insinuate that they are seeking younger workers. So this is a quote from a job seeker who filed a complaint with the EEOC regarding ageism in job postings. He says, "Every bone in your body says your chances of getting this job are practically zero." So you can see how keywords and phrases can have a strong effect on whether candidates even attempt to apply. So make sure to avoid all of these phrases that you see on this slide. Now we'll switch gears and talk a little bit about disabled and neurodiverse workers. The Americans with Disability Act requires employers to make reasonable accommodations to enable any otherwise qualified and qualified person with a disability to do his or her job. So when you're employing persons with disabilities and becoming more inclusive for neurodiverse workers as well isn't as challenging as it often seems. It can come with actually many benefits. The World Economic Forum they found that companies who embrace disabled workers actually benefit in the following ways. So they've seen that there's increased innovation, there's improved shareholder value, improved retention, greater reputation. And in addition to that, 66% of consumers will purchase from businesses featuring people with disabilities in their advertising. And 78% will purchase if there is easy access for individuals with disabilities at their physical locations. So as you can see, there are a lot of benefits for everyone involved. You should also be aware of who you could be screening out. So neurodiverse employees add significant value in organizations, yet this talent pool is being screened out of the recruitment process and in the selection process. So one of the biggest offenders is the automated personality tests that have been shaped exclusively for neurotypical minds. You would be advised just to take a look at your personality tests that you have, if you have these set up in your organizations. Take a look at them and see if they're disqualifying qualified candidates under the guise of personality or cultural fit, where unconscious bias can take hold. So now that you can see we've covered a lot today, when it comes to writing your recruitment communications in a way that appeals to all qualified candidates, regardless of gender, sexual orientation and identity, race, age, disability, and neurodiversity. But the information in this presentation is just the tip of the iceberg. So just as a recap, remember, these are some of the things we covered today. So removing gender-coded words, so taking an extra moment just to make sure you're using the language that's more inclusive. Being careful with qualifications, so remember preferences and requirements and preferences. Consider the LGBTQ candidate, eliminating racial bias, winning over experienced workers, and welcoming disabled and neurodiverse workers as well. So if you found this information valuable and you think other members of your organization would benefit from a deeper dive into unbiased and inclusive recruitment writing, Monster can provide your team with an extensive private training. You can purchase this training and earn professional development credits through HRCI and SHRM. It's a great course. It's good for recruiters at all levels and could be a positive way to align members of your organization to your diversity and inclusion initiatives. The extended training is 90 minutes and it provides a thorough list of inclusive writing tips as well as job ad screening exercises that all benefits can benefit from. There are real life examples, more of a workshop type of training that this training is good for, so your recruiters actually have a chance to look at what they're doing and how they can improve upon it. So with that, I am going to pause and open it up to questions. So Meg, I'm going to hand it over to you, see if we have any questions in the chat, and we'll see, answer some of those questions with the time that we have remaining.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Carla. We already got some comments about how helpful this is, and we will be sending the slides out tomorrow. Carla, we've gotten some more specific questions, and I want to know if this is something that you would be able to cover off on in that more extensive training. For example, adjectives that would be recommended to appeal to all ages, yes. As well as, if a college aspect would be different for internships.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that you do have to keep in mind, you want to keep as much bias out of your recruitment writing as possible, but knowing the type of candidate you're attracting, interns, certainly you're typically focused on college students. However, keep in mind that college students don't always fit that typical mold, right? It's not always the 18 to 22. There are college students that are non-typical ages. So what I would say is just be aware that you're not only focused on that age group, and that you should include the most inclusive language as possible.
That's great. It's also good to note that in Monster's latest survey, we discovered that the emerging workforce, so our college grads, actually respond best to emails. You would think maybe it would be text or otherwise, but emails. So it just goes to show how important that inclusive writing is, not only just in job ads and your career site, but in all correspondence throughout the candidate experience. Carla, can you explain a little bit more what you mean by neurodiverse workers?
Sure. Workers that people that may have autism or may have a disability that may make them require them with need some accommodations. So an example may be a candidate that may take things really literally in your job posting. So just being aware of how you're writing the information, your requirements, to make sure that it can be understood by all applicants, and that there's no, any room for interpreting things that you don't mean. So
that's a really good point. Yeah, there is some comments here in the chat too, even about careful usage of things like high energy. Someone made a great suggestion of maybe, able to multitask or work efficiently. So there's ways that we can kind of, somebody who might be more prone to anxiety or high stress might be less inclined to apply for something that says high energy or fast paced, but in fact, their ability to multitask, they actually are very strong in that. So it's all about that careful verbiage that you're choosing here. I know we are running out of time here. Someone was asking specifically, can we send a link for the 90-minute course? Is that possible, Carla?
It is, absolutely. So when Meg sends out the follow-up communication, in addition to the slides, we'll also include the link to that form you can fill out if you're interested in learning more about that training.
Great. And another thing is, in terms of entry level, would you also be able to cover in this training? It seems like a lot of the questions and comments that we're getting might be specific to their individual hiring needs, whether or not they're hiring for a government program or even nurses or other companies that we're seeing here. Even when we're talking about entry level, are we talking about those that are graduates, or are we talking about those that have taken a break from the workforce and are since re-entering
the workforce? Yeah. So one of the things we do prior to providing this extensive, the 90-minute training, is we actually sit down and have a discovery call with you and talk about your challenges and what positions you're actually hiring for. And we can tailor the message and help your recruiters really kind of hone in on the challenges that they're having with different positions, or expanding your candidate pool to attract all workers or all candidates that may be qualified for the position you're recruiting for.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carla. We are now at the top of the hour, so I'm going to wrap us up here. Thank you all for being such an engaged audience, for not only participating in the polls that we had, but also the chat and the Q&A. We really hope that you were able to answer as many of your questions as possible, but if not, you will have that link for Carla to have a little bit more one-on-one time with her and her team to do that discovery and to answer all of your individual needs. So thank you again, and we hope to speak with you soon.